and gentlemen, welcome to a conversation with Joshua T Berglan and Phyllis Levitt. Phyllis, I am so honored to have you here today. As I said in my intro, anyone who does and has dedicated their life to the work that you do is aces in my book, because I know how challenging it was, my road to recovery. And it's been complex, it's been challenging. And without people like yourself, or people like me to be able to go to and learn from and help, what's the word I'm looking for, retransform, or what's the word, reframe the way that we look at things, the different techniques in healing our trauma, all of that. I am so grateful for people like yourself, because without you, people like me don't go on to heal. And so I just want to say thank you out of the gate. And without further ado, before we get started, I would love to know, what are you grateful for today and why?
It's a long list. I'm grateful. I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful for this beautiful planet that I get to live on. I'm grateful for my husband and my children and my grandchildren that I love with all my heart. And I'm grateful for the work that I have been able to do over so many years with all the help that I have received along the way that's made it possible for me to be here with you today the way that I am and to have the things that I share. All of that wouldn't be possible with the help and love of help from many sources, let's just say it that way. So that's the beginning of a list, and I'm sure I'll add things later on.
That's a good list. I like it. All right. So your work with sexual abuse victims, to me, is what sticks out. And then also working with the families too. That part is super important as well. In fact, I often think that if my parents would have known what was happening to me, maybe early intervention could have set in. With that said, what inspired you to work with sexually abused kids?
Part of it, I think, was from the unconscious, because I really started on that path before I had all the memories that I had. So I think some part of me was just steering me in the direction that I needed to go. But once I got in graduate school, my own memories started to be revealed to me. And like you, I had a time in my own process of which was a moment that I moved through, but it was a profound moment of grief of what could my life have been like had this not happened to me, or had someone helped me. And until that point in my life, I was really a mystery to myself. I had no idea where I was coming from or why there seemed to be such a dark cloud hanging over me, and why I felt so alone, why I felt so other. And once I began to remember what happened to me, it was like this huge puzzle that had been spilled on the floor. All the puzzle pieces started to reassemble, and I got it. I started to understand myself. And I think my path in life has been just endless self-inquiry that has morphed into not just who am I and why am I the way I am or drawn to what I am, but who are we and what influences us, and why are we the human race the way we are, and where are we going? Because basically what I'm writing a lot about in the book that I'm writing now, which is about bringing America to therapy, is that the microcosm and the macrocosm are undeniably linked. So who I am as an individual and who you are and who millions of people are makes up humanity. And so if we're not healed and we're suffering, and many people are, that was one of my big ahas. I'm not alone. There's millions of people out there like me, and they're not just suffering from sexual abuse or physical abuse. They're suffering from poverty. They're suffering from discrimination. They're suffering from war. They're suffering from losing their homeland. So there's all kinds of trauma that people don't have any help for, and like me, may not have even known they needed help for, because they just blamed themselves for what they were experiencing.
Gosh, that response has triggered a lot of different memories, not in a bad way, but good memories. I remember right after being molested by the two guys, just before being molested by my babysitter that was female, I remember like being really scared. At the same time, what I've been able to do over the years is start to realize that I think that there's a part of me that believes that I attracted this into my life, because I think that for all the years that I struggled and battled with my sexuality and not knowing what was real, I seem to remember some of the events that took place before I was molested that has made me believe that maybe I attracted this, and maybe the confusion around my sexuality wasn't so much from being molested. I think a lot of it had to do with religion, where I grew up, the things that I was being told. And then, of course, after being molested, being told that if you say anything, we're going to whip your ass and humiliate you and do a lot of bad things to you. But I remember when I was acting out and getting in trouble because I needed to tell somebody, because I didn't know what was going on with me. I don't know why I was having the nightmares I was having, but yet at the same time going, okay, this felt good, but then it was painful. Okay, this is weird. I don't understand this. Why all of a sudden am I hearing people calling me a faggot? Why am I hearing all these words? It was very confusing. So then I go to my guidance counselor and I hear the words, and this is years later. She told me, she goes, oh, that's normal for little boys to do. And I'm like, being forcibly anally penetrated and forced to do oral. This is very odd. Okay, this is normal. Caused even more confusion. Then hearing it at church and other places, homosexuals go to hell. So there was a lot of warfare that was built in from the very beginning that I don't even know what was worse, being molested or all of the verbal things that I was hearing. You know, that part alone, and not having a safe place to go, not having anyone to talk to, not understanding what was going on was horrifying. And that set off the course for a very, very dark and scary life for most of my life. But ultimately, looking back at it, I think the biggest sin out of all of it was that I learned to lie. I learned to protect secrets, not only what happened to the people that hurt me, but even my family's secret. And then started to protect my own. Ultimately, I think that was the worst thing that could happen. Now, in your professional career and your expertise in this, can you speak to any of what I just said?
Absolutely. I think there's really two parts to the trauma, and I'll speak to sexual abuse, but I think this generalizes out into any trauma, and especially those that are perpetrated at human hands. And that is, there's the trauma itself. There's the actual sexual abuse, the violation of your body that's terrifying, that is unwanted, that sometimes is painful, sometimes is pleasurable, and that's part of the trauma. But in any case, I'm sorry?
I said that part's the mind F of it all. Is that something hurts and feels good at the same time?
I had a 4-year-old that I saw years and years ago who had been molested, and he was very young, obviously, and actually the molest was revealed by his older brother. And he said to me, he just looked at me so innocently one day and he said, but I liked it. And it was just tragic. It was just absolutely tragic, because our bodies are also made to feel pleasure as well as pain. But what I wanted to say is that there's two parts. There's what happens, there's the violation to your body, and there's the response or lack thereof. And for so many people, they don't tell anyone, like you, for shame, for fear, for believing that it really was their fault and there's something wrong with them that's going to be revealed if they tell, but also because there's danger, and because as a society, we have taken a long time to believe our victims. And there's shame and blame societally, not just from the perpetrator or the family or people, the church, for instance, but there's societal shame and blame of people who are molested, and if we stay with sexual abuse. And there's also a lot of cases, and we know this from reading the news and reading people's stories, that even when cases have gone as far as to go into the justice system, they're not always dealt with justice.
Also goes too far. You have the false allegations as well that are really terrifying. It almost seems not fair. And I'm not a victim. I don't look at myself as a victim at all. I've gotten to this place where I'm grateful for my trauma because of what it's fueled me to do today. And also because I have done and do the work to heal, remain healed, and continue to grow and to become who I was created to be. And but that's not an easy path. But stepping into it, the whole thing doesn't feel right, because it doesn't seem like there's a safe way to go. Thinking about human trafficking, for instance, I think I don't know the percentages, I forget, it's somewhere in the 90s. That 90-something% of victims go back to their abductor because the devil is better than the one you don't. So we don't have resources in place. And mind you, it's better than it used to be, but it's not good enough. It's not good enough for people there's not a safe place for battered women that are being abused, and they're maybe a single mother and they're stuck because they're financially dependent on their husband. Yeah. But also, let's just go with little boys. Little boys that are abused have the opportunity to become monsters if they're not helped, if they don't have a safe outlet, if they learn to lie and they don't learn to speak the truth, or they don't learn to share what's going on with them in a loving environment like that. And even, here's the danger of even sharing is sometimes when you share and you're vulnerable with someone else about what happened to you, you get set up to be molested again. And that happened to me. That happened to me when I was 19. So it's just, there's a lot of landmines. In your opinion, what can we actually do to provide a safe place for abuse victims to go heal and rehabilitate their life? Because the other thing I want to say to this, a lot of sexual abuse victims become unsafe to be around other people. Like, I wasn't safe to be around other people, yet here I was getting in and out of relationships and wrecking homes and destroying kids' lives and everything else. Like, what can be?
I think that I want to jump out in response to what you're saying to the big picture, because I think what can be done is that we really urgently need to educate ourselves that what we're seeing, so I'll back up here for a second. So I was trained in lots of different kinds of therapy. And one of the major kinds of therapy that I feel really puts an umbrella around humanity today that we desperately need is family therapy. We're not